How many people are married? Wow. This is the fourth?
Ask her.
Shall we sing the wedding march? We can all do it. Okay, everybody stand. In this perfect moment, the future for us. I'll speak for all of us and say that we were delighted to be invited, or shall I say lured, by the pastiche of visual cues and texts that appeared in our mailboxes a few weeks ago, like messages containing secret codes. An owl and a pussycat, their fully entendered rhyme, photographs from childhood bearing important instructions about specific locations, telling us exactly where we were to gather and with whom. From the moment we opened them, we knew we'd only just begun to feel the hum of something wonderful. But of course, for this ceremony, we are more than gathered here. We arrived. As overture, Marissa and Adam placed us in procession, and it is procession, Whitman suggests, that reveals to us this singular and universal truth. A woman's body is sacred, a man's body is sacred, all is procession. Each has his or her place in measured and beautiful motion. And so we moved. We met at a crossroads, our honor guarded by lightsabers. We followed flower girls, our steps measured to music. We skipped, we sang along, not many. And no doubt, people for blocks around heard love coming. I like to imagine that some of them looked out their windows and said to themselves, so this is what happens when you let immigrants cross your borders. This is what happens. Community happens, culture happens, love happens. And as Marissa and Adam make their pledge today, their intention becomes our own. Their vow unites us all in a new shared history. As my very first task, they've asked that I welcome you and tell you how deeply touched they are that you come to be with them as they join not only their hands but their lives. Most of them to another, center of men. And when Adam speaks of you, he speaks especially of your labor, of the countless hours your hands have worked in his behalf, of the many extra jobs you took to provide for him, of the sacrifices you made to nurture him, of the hope and beautiful dreams you had for him, stitches and seeds that you sowed and sowed to prepare him for the strong things he's done in his life, like what he's doing today. Adam knows that for you, he was the ever-fixed mark Shakespeare spoke of, that love that looks on tempests and is not shaken. Peter, your name is Rock, where elephants take shelter when the heavens frown. Marissa speaks of how your protection, your strong and infectious enthusiasm for life gave her strength to face the world's every scowl. Of how your unwavering acceptance of her through teen years of torn fishnet stockings, your absolute belief that she was wonderful whatever she did, always evokes memories for her of your own mother, her Oma Vaike, whose ring she will now wear. Most of all, D.H. Lawrence described a woman's heart as a deep, wild rock. And in this especially, we know Marissa is and will always be Peter's daughter. Hara Karturia, your name is Maiden of the Strong Spear, and why not? When Marissa wrote her college manifesto opposing marriage, you proudly passed it to us, your friends. A few years ago, when there was no Adam in her life, she tells how you gently offered to retire in a few years and help her raise a child if she wished to become a single mother. In those days, Marissa's desire to subvert the dominant know you, so it surprised none of us that on the day she announced her engagement to marry, that cold, already snowing November day, you rejoiced again, clapped your hands, and immediately went into your frozen garden to plant sweet williams for this spring wedding. It's not hyperbole or sentimentality to say you planted until your fingers bled, because they did. And for me, the truest evidence of your unconditional delight in Marissa's choices was how you mended your open cuts with super glue and kept planting. It was from you that Marissa learned the actualizing power of shaping her own life, of choosing. And it was from you she learned what it means to shepherd a daughter with goodness and mercy all the days of her life. To begin, Marissa and Adam have asked Aunt Ria to sing from Psalm.
My name is Ria, and I am Peter's age. My name is Ria. I'm Cliff's wife, Peter's brother, and I've come all the way from South Africa to sing Psalm 23 to Marissa and Adam. I'm going to sing 3 verses. The first verse in English, the second one in Afrikaans, which is my home language, and Gadas, by the way, and the third one will be in English again.
Russian sage, the purple dragon, and fire chalice. We have innocence in the theology Hara has conceived in this garden, her rational inquiry into religious realms, the stripe of earth behind me that she has so lovingly populated with representations of the children she adores, her palace of moon. We have the beauty of the living arbor tree Peter made of chokecherry trees and willow for Marissa and Adam in the present tense. I do, not I will. And there must be living together at some point afterward, though that could be put off for many years. I suspect that Lear, who brought us our Allen pussycat, knew something of hand fasting, because you'll recall that they sailed away for a year and a day, and there are tales of future that to describe your radiance, I must borrow a verse from your mother's favorite Song of Solomon's. Who is she that looketh forth in the morning, fair as the sun, clear as the moon, formidable as an army with banners? Adam, you're our bridegroom, leaping over mountains, skipping down Commonwealth and Roberta streets, bringing us to the banqueting house. We have the two of you who are, in the words of Wallace Stevens, standing now, supremely true, each to a separate self, in the pale light that each upon the other throws. And because this is a ceremony, and because you have selected a vested authority, our words will do more than express things. Today, your words will do things, because marriage and all its immutables, givens that compose it, bodies, characters, histories, places, marriage is our destination today. And we might ask, why go there? Why should the merriment of our procession, the fun of it, lead to something so serious, so absolute? Why agree to for better or worse, for life, in this era of radical self-questioning and social change? In the 13th century, when the first hand-fasting ceremonies were recorded, lifespans rarely reached 35 years, and the contract, till death do us part, had some real teeth. We live long lives now, and though we may not often say it out loud, we privately observe that marriage may still entertain suspicious economies, that by creating and observing the marriage rites, we may sometimes need to regard this closeness the contract confirms as an opportunity to open our hearts and our soul to own married children. It's important to always remember you have taken a spouse and not a hostage. And I believe that the finest gift my husband has given me throughout our marriage is that he expects me to be no one other than who I define myself to be day after day. Our evidence that this is something the two of you are prepared to do is everywhere, in the readings you have chosen for your hand fasting, but mostly in the particulars of your own love story. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a whimsical spoon, and hand in hand on the edge of the sand, they danced by the light of the moon. But not at first. This love story begins with a sighting and an impediment, because while our Adam was all eyes for Marissa when he first spotted her at Java Jive, is that it? She was the pussycat always purring over a book. And she was young, still high school age, though she'd been enrolled in university math courses since the 10th grade. She was already stunning, not in the way North American high school kittens are pretty. She was regal and beautiful in the way women from older countries are, women who order their latte with a sexy accent that confirmed for Adam, as he put it, that this would definitely be a girl with a different world view. He was intrigued, but he didn't inquire, not yet. And whether by coincidence or something more magical, they did find themselves enjoying the intoxicating aroma of coffee in the same spots around town. And at some point, the furtive glances of Java Jive led to actual chatting at Beans and Brew. And we should have known. We should have known if we'd read the work being published in scientific journals about the power of hot coffee. This was not something Marissa ever did. Who is this man with the quiet confidence? And Hada was having thoughts too. Thoughts putting her in mind of Marissa, the child who pulled together her own version of a white dress and veil, and at the age of 4 had worn it to watch the wedding of Princess Diana over and over and over again. Soon Marissa and Adam were making a home and finding a puppy, which Adam first objected to, but then passionately loved the moment he hugged her, which I'm guessing may be because puppies like coffee are warm. Adam applauded Marissa and kissed her goodbye so she could meet with Nobel laureates in Lindau, Germany, and Marissa applauded and kissed Adam goodbye in the morning so he could pursue his degree in computer science. Suddenly, everything healthy and growthful ways ever since. And then there was the completely sweet gesture that brings us here, when Adam's moment and this woman And this woman was saying yes. And so we're here, getting our answer to the question why, and understanding that these are two people who have chosen to make this pledge, not because it guarantees them something, but simply because it can be pledged, because they have looked at each other and wanted to say, I do, in the present tense, in the presence of the people they love and who love them. So to begin our vows, Andy's mom, Sandy, will give our first reading. Eddie, will you sing that? This is my grandson.
I love you, not only for what you are, but for what I am when I'm with you. I love you, not only for what you have made of yourself, but for what you are making of me. I love you for putting your hand into my heaped up heart and passing over all the foolish, weak things that you can't help dimly seeing there, and for drawing out into the light all the beautiful belongings that no one else had looked quite far enough to find. I love you because you are helping me to make of the lumber of my life not a cavern but a temple, out of the works of my everyday, not a reproach but a song. I love you because you have done more than any creed could have done to make me good, and more than any fate could have done to make me happy. You have done it.
Adam, will you ever forget to pass over some foolishness or brief weakness in Marissa and illuminate instead what it might have been kinder to let fade away?
I may.
Will that be your intention?
No.
Marissa, will you sometimes make of Adam's less than successful efforts a reproach, rather than looking more deeply and drawing out into the light what will give him the courage to try again? Will that be your intention? Believing strongly in the honor it is to be in one another's lives, do you pledge today to work hard to discover each other again and again, and as you do, to treasure the beautiful belongings you find heaped in your beloved's heart?
You do.
Now maybe Peter and Howard.
I like you, and I know why. I like you because you're a good person to like.
I like you because when I tell you something special, you know it's special. And you remember it a long, long time. You say, remember when you told me something special? And we both of us remember. When I think something is important, you think it's important too. We have good ideas. I like you because you know where I'm ticklish. And you don't tickle me there except just a tiny little bit sometimes.
But if you do, then I know where to tickle you too.
You know how to be silly. That is why I like you.
Boy, are we ever silly.
And I like you because when I'm feeling sad, you don't always cheer me up right away.
You can't stand others being so googly and gaggly every single minute. You want to think about things.
It takes time. I like you because if I'm mad at you, then you are mad at me too.
It's awful when the other person isn't.
Sometimes we don't say a word.
We snuggle under the fences. We spy secret places. If I pretend I'm drowning, you pretend you are saving me.
If I'm getting ready to pop a paper bag, then you are getting ready to jump.
And if we are in Grand Central Station, and if I get lost,
then you are the one yelling for me.
that's because you really like me.
You really like me, don't you? And I really like you back.
And you like me back, and I like you back.
And that's the way we keep going on every day.
I would go on choosing you.
And I would go on choosing you.
Over
and over again.
When Marissa is bent on copying paper bags and forget to let her see how ready you are to jump,
I may.
will that be your intention?
No.
Marissa, may you sometimes leave Adam abandoned when he is lost in Grand Central Station, or to some personal disappointment, or to some struggle with himself, or with you, or with the world? Will that be your intention? Knowing that the sneaky desire that first drew you together will now have to stand up to a long string of ordinary days, do you pledge to stay silly and surprise each other, to hear each other's cries and offer comfort, to look for ways to keep liking each other and to always keep choosing each other?
We do.
Next we have Cliff and Rhea.
What is real? Asked the rabbit one day. Does it mean having things buzz inside you and a stick-out handle?
The real isn't how you're made, said the skin-off. It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real.
Does it hurt?
Sometimes, if I'm being truthful, when you're real, you don't mind being hurt.
Does it happen all at once, like being wound up, or bit by bit?
It doesn't happen all at once. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily.
Or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept.
Generally, by the time you're real, most of your hair has been rubbed off.
And your eyes drop out.
And you get loose in the joints and very shabby.
But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly. Except to people who don't understand.
With Adam, do you pledge to accept the pleasure of being loved in perfect ways, the pain of being loved in imperfect ways, and the profound beauty that can only emerge with love's persistence? Adam, in your real life with Marissa, do you pledge to accept the pleasure of being loved in perfect ways, the pain of being loved in imperfect ways, and the transcendent beauty that can only emerge with love's persistence?
I do.
We have Lana and Buzz.
To be sure, an ordinary passerby would think that my rose looked just like you, the rose that belongs to me. But in herself alone, she is more important than all the hundreds of you other roses, because it is she that I have watered, because it is she that I have put under the glass globe.
Because it's he. Because it's he that I have sheltered behind the screen. Because it's for him that I've killed the caterpillars. Except the 2 or 3 that we saved to become butterflies.
Because it is she that I have listened to when she grumbled.
Or when he boasted. Or even sometimes when he said nothing. Because he is my rose.
And now, here is our secret, a very simple secret. It is only with a heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. What is essential is invisible to the eye. We repeat,
so that we will be sure to remember. It is the time you've wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important.
It is the time
It is the time
I
I've
have
wasted
for my rose. We repeat,
so that we will be sure to remember.
Men have forgotten this truth, but you must not forget it.
You must become responsible forever for what you've cultivated. You are responsible for your rose.
I
am responsible for my rose. We repeat, so that we will be sure to remember.
Marissa and Adam, do you pledge to remember Dartha's truth? Love does not dominate, it cultivates. And do you commit yourselves to the very weighty, sometimes troubling, always time-consuming responsibility of nourishing each other, of caring for each other's bodies, minds, and hearts, of protecting what is delicate, sheltering what is vulnerable, and celebrating the things that promote your growth?
We do.
Nick and Jeff? I thought Nick was going to step in. I'm sorry.
I don't believe in marriage. Let me be clear about that.
I think at worst, it is a hostile political act. A way for small-minded men to keep their women in the house and out of the way, wrapped in the guise of conservative religious nonsense.
At best, it is a happy delusion. It's two people who really love each other who have no idea how truly miserable they are about to make each other.
But when two people know that and they decide with eyes wide open to face each other and get married anyway,
I don't think it's conservative or delusional. I think it's radical.
and courageous, and especially for Marissa and Adam, very romantic.
When you love someone, you don't love them all the time, in exactly the same way from moment to moment. It's an impossibility. It's even a lie to pretend to. And yet, this is exactly what most of us demand.
We have so little faith in the ebb and flow of life, of love, of relationships. We leap at the flow of the tide and resist in terror its ebb.
We are afraid it will never return.
Relationships must be like islands. One must accept them for what they are here and now.
Within their limits, islands surrounded and
interrupted by the sea,
and continually visited and abandoned by the tides.
We insist on permanency and duration and continuity.
When the only continuity possible, in life as in love, is in growth, in fluidity.
In freedom, in the sense that the dancers are free, barely touching as they pass, but partners in the same pattern.
Beauty of your partnership with a selfish desire. Will that be your intention? Marissa and Adam, you're standing here, as we said at the beginning, supremely true, each to a separate self, in the pale light that each upon the other throws. So when you find yourself swept up and struggling with the sea changes that threaten desire and lifelong love, when you find yourself in a desperate place where something has gone terribly wrong, and you're deciding what you'll save, will you promise to try to save the other's pride, the other's dignity, the other's dream, and by doing so, to save the light that only this other, your other, can cast on you? And honest toward each other, and to continue to give to each other extravagantly without thought of compensatory return, and to continue to live by choice and awareness rather than by obligation and reaction, to continue to love each other across the entire spectrum of human experience. And these are the rewards of a marriage in this, the third millennium. To have someone who soars with you when you succeed, a counselor in perplexity, a comforter in sorrow, someone who willingly bends to shoulder your burdens with you, someone who voluntarily acts in your good and who day by day accepts with grace and gratitude the love you have to give. As I unfasten these bindings, will everyone in the audience please stand? I'm going to ask you a question as well, and I hope that when I finish you will all together very loudly give your answer. Will you who witnessed the promises Marissa and Adam have just made do all you can to support this marriage?
Yes. We will.
Great, you may sit down. Kanye, will you bring the... Adam and Marissa, will you please face each other? And when you've untied them, are you going to do that? Adam, as you place the ring on Marissa's finger, I will have you repeat after me. Marissa, with this ring I be wed.
Marissa, with this ring, I be wed.
Marissa, will you place the ring on Adam's finger and repeat after me? Adam, with this ring I be wed. With the blessings of all the family and friends who are present, under the authority vested in me, and according to the laws of the state of Utah, I now pronounce you husband and wife. For the good part, where I instruct Adam and Marissa to share a kiss with the binding force more powerful than any of the kisses that have come before, I'm going to ask for some help. I've practiced for days to learn to say the words, "You may kiss" in Afrikaans. But I would like everyone from South Africa to say it with me on my signal. Are we ready? Hier Mag soon. It is my pleasure to introduce you now, and this is not a typo, to Mr. and Mrs. Saunders.
I can't move, so start migrating down there. People are maybe we can go through the house, not the front. Has to expand We're folding. It's like a game to make a path. Hold the chair. So Facebook.
Yes, yes. It was so amazing. We did not intend for that.
Pardon you. Thank you, Rhea.
Thank you so much for handling our puppy.
Hopefully everything else.
Well, congratulations. I don't know what we do in this situation. Congrats. You two look hot. Like, good job.
Thanks for coming out.
We'll give a hug. Oh, yeah. Good stuff. Good game. Good game. Good pickup. Yeah. Mr. Saunders. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, this was a righteous wedding. Like, very well done. Yeah.
Adam, thank you for coming out.
Yeah.
I like the
We'll get
stash.
some drinks together
Thank you.
There you go. Did I do it?
Thanks. Coming out. Wonderful. Exciting. Not too bad. Thank you. Thank you. I know. It turned out to be perfect. Just in time.
He'll change the world for the good thing he's found. If she is bad, he can't see it. She can do no wrong. Turn his back on his best friend if he